what, like, it almost feels like a little bit of, like, there's something behind it, right? It kind of feels like somebody's doing this on purpose in order to gain attention. I'm not saying that he's not guilty of his crimes. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's just a little fishy that all this shit starts happening now. Why?
Yeah, that's probably because one person spoke, and then that evolves. That always rolls into being more and more people.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, go back a little further. Like, go a little back with Kanye, or now he's Ye. I can't keep up. Remember when that whole thing was going on? You're like, did this man just promote Adolf Hitler on fucking live television? Like, I think these people know shit that we don't know. Because to be
Yeah.
honest, like, the whole, like, music and underground and label, it's a mafia. Yeah. Did I say that loud enough? Yeah, it's a mafia.
You never know who's part of it. They might be listening right now.
What's your thoughts on that?
On what in particular there?
Like the conspiracy that these arrests and these people, these famous people that are kind of having like loco moments, is like it's all part of a greater plan. I'm telling you, like, I love this kind of shit. Like, this just because it kind of almost feels like it's a movie, right?
Yeah. I feel like you piss off the wrong person, and eventually that stuff comes out. But people have known about it for years. There's videos of artists going back maybe 5-6 years right from right now that were on Drink Champs. So Nori has a podcast, and Fabulous is on there, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't want to go to your parties, man." He's like, then he's like, "When are we gonna party together?" And Fabulous is like, So it's one of those things. I think they have a lot of open secrets, but when you get the wrong person upset, that stuff comes to light ASAP. It's just is always holding over your head.
I've said this before, and this is going to be probably like the most controversial thing that I'll probably say to you, like, out of this whole conversation. People these days, particularly when it comes to rap and hip hop, there's like this, like trap and real, and like fighting for the man and the this and the that. Whereas if we go back like 25 or 30 years ago, the people that are actually rapping, the people that were actually producing the hip hop, they were the fucking gangsters. They were the fucking drug dealers. They were the people that were in prison. They were the people that were suffering. I'm not saying that there aren't any that there are today, but it's like this desire to go back instead of pushing forward. It's like, why are we always going back? Why aren't we like pushing forward? That's kind of like why this whole like arrest with Diddy and then the thing with Kanye, and then there's like this whole thing now with Travis Scott. I don't know. It feels a little unnecessary.
Interesting.
You see what I mean?
It's always been a show. I think a lot of people think that a lot of these guys were gangsters, a lot of these guys were tough guys, and they really weren't. A lot of this is all marketing. It's just a lot of the veil is pulled back now. Like, I've talked to a lot of people that work at record labels or worked at record labels in the 80s and 90s. It's like these guys weren't, a lot of them weren't gang. Like, a lot of them came from the same sort of environment. Like, I come from that same environment. Like, when I was growing up, KRS-One, where he grew up, is like a freaking 2-minute walk from where I was living, right? So
Bronx.
I'm from the South Bronx, and I know what it's like to grow up there, and I know what it's like to grow up there when there's a lot of crime. It's not like that now. It's not the same, but that makes it sound like it's good. But I say that to say, even then, you was involved in stuff, and how the money is moved has involved a lot of those kinds of people. But a lot of these guys are actors. It's always been like that.
It has. I mean, you take a person like even Ice Cube. Like, he's as real as they fucking come. But the thing about him is that like he's not out there to shadow the crowd and roar and scream. Like he's always kind of been like kind of a little bit of an outsider, like you know who he is. You've heard his beat, like you've seen his movies, you see. But that's what I'm saying. Like some of the like actual real people, they're not always in your face. They're not people that like immediately come to your mind because they don't want the attention. You see what I'm saying here? These are people that chased by the police, fucking chased by mafias, gangs, put in prison. Like they don't want people to bother them. They kind of just want to live with their wife or their kids and just kind of take it a little easy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think Ice Cube's a funny example
Yeah.
because
I love that motherfucker.
you could definitely look into a little bit more about Ice Cube's background and where he's from and what the streets would say about him and his come up. But and that's not my world, right? That's a
No.
whole different. LA is a whole different universe from New York, but um, man, a lot of it is people putting on characters, putting on shows. Stories are based on the people around us. There's some artists that uh, people know them, and like at the end of the day, they're human beings like anybody else. People know their story is really their cousin's story, right? It's somebody else's story that they're telling, and I think a lot of people want rap to be a bunch of gangsters doing gangster shit. It's not. It's not really like that. It never has been. But going back to your thing about us sort of going back, I think it's just as a spotlight. People have always done crazy things. Um, and right now it's just there's a lot of attention, there's a lot of eyes on celebrity in general in a way that there hasn't been because we're in this era of like everybody's authentic, everybody's themselves.
Yeah,
And
right.
realistically, it's like if you're yourself and you're 100% visible 100% of the time, whatever mistakes you make, those are going to come to light. Somebody's going to see them and somebody's going to blow them up.
The crazy part is you always have that damn motherfucker that's screaming on top of his lungs that, you know, change is easy, to be able to make yourself such a better person, and you don't need these fancy people, come to us, we're independent artists. We'll take care of you. We'll show you the ropes. I'm just talking from my own experience, even within the underground or even in the independent side of things, there's very little control. There's complete chaos. Like I have seen cases of artists where they're literally being used by other artists because they don't know how to do those things.
Yeah.
So they just take advantage of each other. So it's like, I get it. We don't have the large labels and I understand they're really evil, but then you're fucking taking advantage of your own fucking people.
You know what's funny? On the last few podcasts that I've been on, this point has come up a couple times about, I mean, maybe I've been the one bringing it up. That's why he's coming up. Artists are the last people to get paid at the end of the day, right? Like if you talk about going on tour, before you've ever gone on tour, you've paid a bunch of people to help make your songs, whether that be production, mixing, mastering, et cetera, et cetera. You paid for studio time. You've paid for any sort of content creation that you might have done it, unless you're doing it all from home. You're paying Meta, you're paying whoever it is for advertising. You're doing so much of this. You're paying the venue to be able to host you in some way or another, whether that be a cut of ticket sales and revenue, whether that be an actual upfront fee to rent out the venue if you have the fan base that'll let you do that. Um, you pay the merch suppliers. Like everybody's hands are in your pocket before you actually get paid. Like it costs a lot more than I think people think it does to be an artist. I think people think it's like, oh, you put out a song, it just blows up. It's like, nah, it's really not like it's not like that at all.
No. I mean, we've been talking about like different artists. One I was even talking recently with a friend was Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
Okay. People don't understand this, but they were rich.
Yep.
They were always rich. And I'm not putting them down, but they made fun of the fact that they were rich. If you think about like Paul's Boutique or their very first album that they did with Rick Rubin, they're just making fun of their own life. And, that is kind of a way where artists find a form of satire.
Yeah.
where when you look at, for example, like gangster rap, for example, like if I listen to like Mob Deep, right? I'm gonna throw that out there. They're telling you their sarcasm. They're telling you their sadistical twist on their story. It's not supposed to be lyrical, like literal. It's supposed to be lyrical. Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, absolutely, you're right. That's absolutely the case.
So I want to hear your own perspective on this. Um, you do see, for example, like what I said, like the drastic change and shift. I mean, what we call real today, like feels fake as fuck yesterday.
Mhm. No, I mean, that's what it is, because I feel like this is something that maybe will change in the next couple of years,
How so?
but marketing people got a hold of the word authenticity, and so now everybody's authentic, right? We're all presenting in an authentic way that we didn't before. Your brand has to know who you are, but what does that mean? That means you've curated your image. Like at the end of the day, you are who you present to people, right? So if I have three marketing executives behind me, this guy just came out of college, did 4 years of marketing, knows that if you look at focus groups, people prefer certain last names, people prefer certain backstories, right? Now that's my name. Now that's my backstory. Um, this is crazy. I was watching. This is gonna sound stupid. You ever seen that show Kevin Can Go Fuck Himself?
I think so. Is that on
So
Netflix?
it is on Netflix, yeah. So it's a parody for those that might hear this and don't know. It's a parody of shows like The King of Queens or Everybody Loves Raymond, those sort of American sitcom shows, and then they give the perspective of the
Vanilla
people in those
pudding,
relationships.
vanilla pudding American sitcoms.
That's right,
Yeah.
man. That's I call it popcorn television, so we on the same page.
It
I
really
love it.
is, bro. Oh my god,
Um,
so unrealistic. Like,
it's
sorry, go on.
nuts.
Yeah,
Nah, it's cool. But I say that to say there was a scene where the dude is like opens up a diner. It's called Bev's Diner. They open the door. It's an Asian guy hosting it, and they thought he worked it. He's like, yeah, I own it. Just turns out in New England, we did the market research. Sounds better if they think it's an old white lady behind the counter making the food, right? And it's like that's exactly the type of stuff. Like there's that disconnect between authenticity in quotations and authenticity for real. And I think that marketing label people in marketing have gotten so into that as an idea, and that's what they sell you now. um I think the backside of that is that people become a lot more invested in you, right? If you think about artists 20 years ago, 30 years ago, let's say a Prince, you really didn't know a lot about Prince's personal life. If he had a relationship, fine, that type of stuff goes public,
he
but
was
you don't know
very
what he
pri-
was
he
doing.
was very private.
Very private. You didn't know when he was at Marshalls. You know what I mean? When he was at
No,
Walgreens picking up a prescription. Nowadays, with social media, nowadays with everything, it's sort of this snap back, and you see it politically too. I don't obviously want to get into.
all about the artist. That is the whole purpose of this podcast. Period. And you have a really valuable tool. You can share this with artists, people that are creative, someone that can enjoy this podcast and really enjoy the experience of Lost in the Groove. So, with that, let's jump back to today's episode, shall we?
Politics, but
No,
we
of course not.
every few years, or every few let's say decades, our country goes snaps back left and right. If you look at the history of, let's say, a state like Florida, right? Florida used to vote straight Democrat until I think like 1980, and then that switches over, right?
You
And
know
we
why?
see trends like that. That Republican wave, and that I couldn't get too much into that. That's outside of my purview, but
So, a little recap, which you actually might appreciate this. The whole reason why Florida is the way that it is because of corporate America.
yeah,
When they brought Walt Disney World down here in 1972, the government here in Florida, over a period of like 20 or 30 years, transitioned to business focus. Who are the leaders in corporate business in America right now? The Republican Party.
interesting. They're also real mad at Disney right now, aren't they? They're like, you can't have any pride symbols on on your
The
thing. So
dog must obey the master.
have you heard about this? There's
Yes.
there's like a very public Disney has been fighting with the Florida government and they're both real petty. So the Florida government was like, "Yeah, we're going to take away your incorporation because Lake Buena Vista was its own city." And we're like, "We're going to just incorporate you into one of the cities there or one of the regions." And they Disney is like, "All right, cool." And they just are like pettily responding back and forth for the last couple of years because of the politics on it. It's nuts. It's insane. It's
Yeah.
cool that a corporation's standing up for, against the government being too political, like socially political, right? Like in any respect, you shouldn't force a company to be like, we're going to be Republican now. We're going to be right wing, or we're going to be left wing. You can't force them to have a political
See,
view.
I'm not going to put on any names, but like there has definitely been like rappers and artists recently that they turn their music now into a political agenda. And what I mean by that is you represent yourself. You don't represent anybody else. You're representing yourself. So if you want people to see you, then represent your fucking self. Like what do you I the
I think
truth
as an
is
artist, I don't know, man. I don't disagree. I think as an artist, you should be able to express yourself, but I think you don't lose the ability to say, I believe in X, Y, and Z, right? So if you think about like a Cardi B getting on stage for Kamala Harris, a lot of people got mad at that, like, oh, why are you getting political? Go just rap. One,
it wasn't coming from the
fundamentally,
heart. It wasn't coming from the heart.
I'm not mad at your perspective on that. I'm just saying I think if you look back at the history of hip hop, a lot of what the original purpose of what people were doing was talking, right, about their situation, their environment. Like how you get past that first couple of years of it being like emceeing or whatever, and it's just rocking the party, moving the mics, and that's hugely important. But you get into Grandmaster Flash or the Breaks, with Curtis Blow. Those guys are talking about stuff that's really going on. Like what is it in the message, right? That entire thing is they're talking about the situation around them, and it just happens to have that catchy little hook of "Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge," right? But they begin that, or in the middle of it, they're talking about a kid dropping out of school, or a guy's son is like, why am I in school? I could be like a hustler. I could make money. And he's trying to keep his kid away from that. Like hip hop has always had, and I think people don't realize that it's always had an agenda. And for better or worse, whatever people feel, it's an expression of self. But I do agree that it should be authentic, right? Like you should be yourself. Like you shouldn't be coming up because you think you'll get a little payday out of it, or somebody will give you, a little money, especially if you don't need it. I think people are always going to sell out their morals for the right price.
Yeah.
It's a shame, but it's the world. There's always going to be somebody who's willing to bend for whatever. But I think Cardi B has the right, definitely, to be on that stage with Kamala Harris. I don't think anybody should be like, "Oh, you make music." It's like, nah, she has a whole bunch of influence. A lot of people can
Look up
benefit
to her.
from exactly. A lot of people look up to her. A lot of people just enjoy her as a human being. So I think it's dope that she's using her platform for something that she believes in. Um, but I think that to your point, it came off to a lot of people as like you just bringing up celebrities, right? I think that was one of the big criticisms of Kamala Harris was like you just bringing up celebrity after celebrity after celebrity, and it's like a Hollywood party as opposed to it being like, okay, what about issue X that's really important from your issue Y, and where the clear policies and all this sort of stuff. Again, I'm not a political guy,
No,
so
no, no.
I can't debate it, but
I wanted to add on to what you're saying because you have a really valuable point. Like I've been living down here in Florida for 3 years. I'm born and raised in New York. I grew up in Rockland County, on the other side of the Hudson,
yeah,
and I'm an outsider here, right? And the thing that I've experienced is, and again, no judgment. This is from my own perspective. The artists out here have it so much better than the artist out in New York. Okay. Because out here, if you're a part of the Latin community, you're part of the Haitian community, you're part of any of the Caribbean communities, you're able to like get into this ecosystem and basically have people that will help you build. In New York, you're treated like a fucking dog. You have to like fucking work 3 jobs, maybe get us like possibly on a single with like 10 other people, and then maybe you'll get like a son. It's so much. But that's the thing about being here in this country. It's like everybody's in different states and everybody has different experiences. And sometimes they don't realize what they have. And what that is fucking freedom, bro. Freedom is like just do whatever the fuck you want. Some places you can't do that shit, like Chicago. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is true up here. It's definitely more dog eat dog, right? Like if you have people, you're blessed with your small community, your small environment, but it's definitely not as collaborative as it is down with artists that I've worked with in the South or that I've talked to in the South. I feel like they have a lot more of that camaraderie. Same thing with like the West, right? Like in LA, not LA, because I don't,
Oh,
LA is outside my world, but LA is like a tale of two cities. You got the one where everybody's a celebrity. Everybody believes they're a celebrity. And every time I've been in LA, you experience that. You be in the cab and somebody's like, yeah, I talked to this guy's fifth cousin, who's this guy's cousin, who's related to Joe Budden. You're like, all right, well, cool. Like, and this guy's like 10 degrees of separation from Kendrick Lamar. You're like, all right. So do you know Kendrick Lamar? He's like, nah, but I kind of do if you really think about it. So I'm kind of important. You're like, bro, okay, relax. But then you see a lot of the actual artists there are so connected. They don't care. They hop on each other's stuff. They big up each other all the time. I think it's definitely a lot of love out there. New York is very once you get in your clique, you know, you work with who you work with. It's you build together for sure. You build together for sure, but it's definitely a little bit less. It's more competitive. Like the spirit of hip hop is very competitive in New York in a way it's not in a lot of other places.
you can't, no matter how far a New Yorker will go, it never leaves you. You're always a New
Yeah,
Yorker.
yeah,
Always. I still sound like a New Yorker, you know? Like, no matter where I go, no matter how far I try. But I think that's honestly like one of the beating hearts is just the type of music and art that has literally come out of the state. I mean, we've kind of changed a generation if you think about it.
yeah. Absolutely.
What about for yourself? Like, do you think that has like inspired you or changed you in like what way?
What has inspired me being in New York?
No, like I know that you're an artist,
Right.
and you know artists, for example, get inspiration from different places. You've mentioned like different artists that you've connected with. What kind of like from there, for example?
Yeah, I mean, two of the people that I work with a lot right now, my guy Reggie Rude, my other guy Rome Holman. These two guys are really dope at what they do, and when I listen to them, right, I hear Rome is super lyrical, and you hear the stuff that he's putting together in some of his songs, and you're like, damn, I should probably work on my similes and my metaphors a little bit more, right? Like my literary devices or whatever. Reggie's always trying stuff, right? So being in the studio, even sharing that energy with them. The person that we mix and master with, the person that we work with, the artists, the different producers I've worked with have given me the ability to sort of take different avenues, right? Like I have before I even started really putting out music formally. Um, I have worked with a few producers that had more like electronic funk sounds, right? Have inspiration from really everywhere. So I think it's one of those things where working with those different people opens your mind up for sure. And that's where I take a lot of that inspiration from.
I like that. It almost like it gives you like a sense of fuel, right? You know, like the
Yeah.
nitrous in the car, where you always have to push to make yourself better. I think like there's no way of being perfect. Sometimes like you have to fuck up in order to do better. Like
Oh, for sure.
you can't always be perfect.
For
Just
sure. There was a, oh man, this is a million years ago now, but back when Schoolboy Q was touring, for, I want to say it was Oxymoron. He had done an impromptu, like a pop up show in the city, and I ran into somebody that was on his team, and this guy's like, "Can you make this slot out here in where was it in Rhode Island? I forget the name of the city, Providence."
Providence? Okay.
Yep. So I go and I'm like,
Nice place,
I
by the
have no
way.
money at the time. It was a pretty city. It's very beautiful
Yeah.
down there. I was broke at the time, broke college kid. I was like, I got to make this happen. Um, I'm going around asking, looking for somebody to lend me a little bit of money, finding my way around. So I finally get there. I was late for the show. Um, for some reason, I had posted this on the internet. I put it up, I think, on Reddit. And they were like, "Oh, let's listen to your music real quick." They was smoking me in those comments. And I was like, if I had gone on stage and played whatever I was going to play, I was getting booed off that stage. And it was like one of those things where it's like, I definitely would have been fucked if I gone up there. But that type of experience where you have people listen to your music and go, this is wrong and this is why. Like, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. That type of stuff is humbling, but it also makes you better as an artist because you like, it sounds strange, but it validates you in a way. Like, it makes you go, okay, I definitely can make better things. And what you're looking for is not what I'm doing at this time, like at this moment in time. So, yeah, you learn a lot from fucking up. Even before
Really?
you really get into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes you sometimes like realize that you're going the wrong direction. You
Yep.
know, we sometimes really get fucking cocky,
Yeah.
and it can blind you, and you just you got to let it feed you.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
You got to get clapped sometimes. At the end of the day,
Uh,
gotta happen.
what do
That's
you
the only
think?
way you grow.
What do you think have been like some of your high moments? If if you can think of any, and like, what did that do
And
for you?
I think my highest moments are yet to come, right? I think being able to perform and receive a lot of love, being able to put out songs. I have a song out, Goyer Gatling, that on YouTube, like I went from having no views to like 16, 17,000 views, a lot of positive comments, a lot of positive feedback.
Damn.
Um, yeah, it's dope. I'm excited about it. But being able to see that success translate, we just dropped King's Ransom, which has this an EP, a bunch of the different singles that I have, plus an extra sort of bonus single that's on there. Just receiving love, I think that's been a consistent high, right? Being able to meet with people, let them hear stuff and hear their feedback, right? I think that's really been dope. I think it's a lot of highs. I think even performing on stage, right? The first time I really got up there, did my thing, like I felt that, like I felt that energy and knowing this is what I wanted to do. The last high that I feel like was really important is what sort of got me back into making music. So I'm 30 now, right? 30 is a little bit old to be pursuing music, right? To be starting out, and I'm well aware of that. But the thing that has been consistent in me is that I love making music. I love writing. I love rapping. I love doing what I do. So my biggest problem was always my anxiety. Scared to like put stuff out into the world, get the feedback, what if everybody hates this shit? What if I'm trash? And what's been really cool was, or one of the things that was the impetus for me to start switching over to like doing this professionally again, is I went on an impromptu sort of battle thing, right? Like we were at a show down in Brooklyn, and they called us up to basically like, oh, whoever wants to come up and battle. This sounds like 8 Mile. I swear to God, this sounds like 8 Mile.
I swear, I swear, like the fact that you even said it's in Brooklyn, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is 100% believable.
Yeah,
Like,
this is the
yeah,
thing that's happened. Like if you know the scene, you know the scene, right?
I
Um,
know, man.
but
Wild
so
shit.
I go up and I battle, I do my thing, and I won after like three, four different
Was it a
people.
one-on-one?
It was repeated one-on-one, so it was like a knockout bracket.
Oh
So
shit, bro.
basically, I go up and then I battle. If I win, I stay up. If I lose,
Yeah.
I get off. So really, if you think about it, the last person to go, that's sort of the luckiest person. But That's neither here nor there. So I got through that. They promised me a spot on Sirius XM on a Shade 45 show. I'm not going to name the show because the slot sort of panned out. So I wasn't real happy with the people. But the people in the audience, they showed me a lot of love and, that we did well and that I got that reception that I was able to really just be myself. I think that was probably the impetus. That was the real high for me. It was like, there's love out here. You gotta hunt for it a little bit.
On Sirius XM.
On Shade 45, man, the biggest hip hop station in the entire Sirius XM network. I was like, this is so dope. I was all excited. Yeah, I was like, all right, join our little Instagram group. I'm like, bro,
You
just tell
want
me when to be on the show.
I have a 2011 Ford Mustang, and I found my Sirius XM coupon
Yeah,
for
still work.
it expired April 10th, 2013. So I still have the coupon though.
Should turn it in. Just see if you could get a new 3-month trial.
Shit. Bro, honestly, like talking about just like old shit. I love sometimes like when you go into the thrift stores these days and they have like some of the old pants and the t-shirts and the belts. Like they have shit like all the way from like the 90s and 80s, like I don't even know how some of these prints survived. I remember I was in the other I think it was Goodwill, and I
Yeah.
saw this Run DMC t-shirt. Bro, do you know how much they wanted for that bloody thing?
How much?
$109.
Oh no.
The bastards knew that it was worth money.
That was somebody's laundry one day.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
They
And
was gonna
some
charge you $110 for that.
yeah, and some black bastard just fucking put it in a trash can and sent it to Goodwill.
Yeah, like 110 for this, and then meanwhile, they're reproducing a lot of these at like Target or whatever. Not Target, like TJ
Walmart.
Maxx. You find them everywhere. Walmart too. Yeah, it's insane.
It's what like it's almost we're so like we're like now 2025, but everybody's still so obsessed of the 90s, you know? Like we were talking about this earlier before. It almost feels like we like to go reverse. We don't like to go forward. Like the thought of like, no, 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 no. Give me that umbrella pants. Yo, give me that like 1 pound chain. You remember those? The 1 pound
We're
chains?
always we're always doing that. We're always like 30 years in retro. Like if you look at 10 years ago around this time, what was coming out? Stranger Things, right? With that 80s aesthetic. The 80s were like in style maybe 10 years ago. So you start to see that trend shift a lot, a lot, a lot. And it's the same thing always. Like the 70s were retro in the 2000s. It's like I feel like we're like always 30 years. Even if you watch the TV shows, like that 70s show came out in the 90s, right? And you want to hear something funny. In the 70s, there was a show set in the 50s. It was Happy Days. I feel like we're always longing for the past. Everybody wants a simpler time. Man, we got iPhones now. Relax. You don't need your acid print jeans.
I remember um hey, it's Dave, and I quickly just wanted to jump in and say if you've been enjoying the podcast, enjoying this episode, if you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that'll be so greatly appreciated. Because here's the thing, someone might read that review and make the choice if they want to listen to the podcast. You get to help grow this podcast with us. How fucking cool is that? Let's jump back to today's episode. I'm 25, like we're only a couple years apart, but like I remember the way that you would have to get music. See, people don't understand. Back in the day, you had to have like an MP3 player. Or if you were poor, you had a CD player. And if you were even poorer, you had a tape recorder. And if you're one of the rich people, or somewhat rich, you had a tape recorder, a CD player, and an MP3. And it was a process. Like, Couldn't just be like, all right, let me go on Spotify and put in Taylor Swift. Did it? Nah,
Yeah.
nah.
Everybody had like the little Sansa clips, the iPod shuffles. Before that, it was the Walkman. Absolutely, that's been a thing forever.
The waterproof CD players.
The waterproof CD players. It was, it was. I was talking about this the other day. It was nice when you had that separation between like this is the thing that I like fuck around on, and then this is the thing I make my phone calls with. Because when
Yeah.
it's both, you kind of have an excuse always to have it on you, right? So now you're doing random things at like random times, and it's not even there's not like I have dedicated time for this anymore.
I kind of also remember like the days of where like on the sun visor you'd have like where you put in the CDs, and the car rides were kind of adventurous because
Yeah,
you just randomly pick a CD and just start playing music. I know like I try to be nostalgia, but what I'm trying to get at is that like we both in many ways are so fucking lucky because we've seen like I holy dude, I remember when a fucking like screen, like the TVs, the flat screen TVs, they were like $6,000.
hmm
Okay, I like I swear to God, like I was with my dad in Costco, and I remember like $6,000 on the fucking label. I have one right now. It's like $250. What the
You know
fuck?
what?
What
I've
the
been
fuck?
having this conversation. I feel like stuff. Maybe we just attract certain like things, right? Like, and just over time, we just attract certain patterns of thinking. Um, I've been asking this question for the last couple of days. What do you think is the latest in history that you could pull somebody from and then bring them into today and they wouldn't like have a seizure immediately?
2014.
You think that late?
Hmm.
That's the latest I've heard. I always say like I always say it's only been like 2 3 days, but I've been saying like 1995 to 2004, something like that.
No.
Because by then, I mean,
Oh, 1995. Dude, I'm telling you, like, people always tell me, like, holy shit, weren't you raised in the 90s? I grew up in the early 2000s. Let's be honest.
yeah,
It was the 90s. Okay. We had landlines, we had dial up, we had VHS players. It was the 90s. Okay. Like, I know it was 2004, it was the 90s. But I remember clearly that from 2010 to 2011, it was like somebody turned a light switch on and off. All of a sudden, flat screen TVs started becoming cheaper. Everybody started having smartphones. Everybody started having iPads. All of a sudden, you started seeing these large screens replacing advertisements. Like,
yeah, it's been nuts. And that's why I'm saying you take somebody from 1995, right? Let's say,
yeah,
and they don't know what an iPhone is. They've never really worked with the internet as social media, right? In the way that we interact with it now. They
yeah.
didn't have the plethora of content on YouTube. The second they get over here, they're going to be a couch potato. The electric vehicles weren't even really a thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's nuts. Whereas, at least you get into the 2010s, you start to see the genesis of that stuff. So you put them here today, you're like, all right, I see where that was going. That makes sense. But like 2004, and even then, I just think either way, it's crazy how much we've advanced in the last 15, 20, 25 years
Okay.
as a human race.
I want to, I'm going to throw this out to you and just think about this for a second. There was a company called Baker Motors. Um, they built electric cars in the early 1900s.
Mhm.
If you take one of the engineers or one of the people that built those electric cars and put them in a Tesla factory today, how would they react?
They would probably, actually, I don't think. I don't know. They would be amazed at how efficient it probably is.
compared
You know what I
to
mean?
the electric
Compared
cars
to
that they
when
were
they
working
were
on.
right. Like they would be compared. Like they would be, what's the word for it? Sort of astounded at that. But I don't know if they would be like incapable of doing the job. You know what I mean? They'd be like, "Yo, y'all got some nice machines here," which is kind of cool. But I think the idea that they would be astounded that like it went all the way to where it was going, right? I'm sure that they had like some like early working prototypes or something, right? Where
Yeah.
it had to be something that was going on there.
Well,
But
the thing was also like, particularly with the automotive industry, is electric and steam was first.
mhm,
Gasoline came later. You know, something like, if you notice throughout history, we stop and then we continue years later. And there's a lot of different
yeah,
things like this. You know, we talk about like touchscreens. Touchscreens were invented in the 1960s. Okay.
yeah, they've been around forever.
Yeah, they've been around for a very long. So it's like, you know what? We can even go like into the music industry, where computers have been around since the 1950s. But the way that we've been able to shrink instrument, think about this. You're able to shrink. We used to have like a whole entire room of instruments to have
Yeah,
like a bunch. Now you just need a computer, one device. So 25 years ago, you needed 15. 25 years later, you need one.
it's like we've evolved so much, man. It's not even funny. It's insane.
Anybody can make music. You just go to
Yeah,
ChatGPT and you make music.
yep. Which is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
That's a that's a can of worms. Like I think it's crazy that people are using ChatGPT to outsource creativity, and it's tough. It's tough.
I try to have the outlook of, you can almost use it as a tool. So the thing is, like, inevitably ChatGPT is the future. So as an artist, you can either use it as a way of cheating, or you can actually use it as a way of advancing your own craft. The cool thing about programs like ChatGPT is you can take your own creativity and figure out different ways of going about it.
You can augment it, yeah.
Correct. You know, I like, I think we just have the, like, every single time we're new to something, we're always like, oh, nah. Think about it. I mean, like, Rick Rubin was really fucking experimental. Like, the amount of money that man spent, and he was right. I mean, he wasn't wrong. So, what are we doing wrong?
I think it's hard to get used to. The change is hard. I think change is hard for everybody. That's probably why we're so angry all the time. The world changes so much. So people get sick of it. They're just like, this is enough.
Give me something better.
Uh, Give me some, which it's change in and of itself. If something better came along, they'd be angry about that too. I feel like, do you know the concept of hedonistic adaptation?
I'm familiar.
So we sort of have this like this hedonic treadmill that we run on essentially, right? No matter how far we advance, no matter how great things get, you can count on the idea that humans will be dissatisfied in some way, shape, or form. Like if you every single night slept on Egyptian cotton, beautiful 1,000 thread count sheets, um, give it 2 months, 3 months, you will be angry the second that you have to sleep on an 800 thread count sheet, right? Um, that's just how we are as humans. Like we're so built to be upset about things. Like we're wired for it. We're wired to always want things to change and get better, but then always be mad when they do change. It's the
Hmm.
weirdest thing about the human experience to me.
You know, one thing that I kind of noticed, because I don't know why. Like sometimes I get like with the Reddits and things, particularly with like even Chapel Rowan,
Hmm.
they're like just so much hate, and I'm just like, I say to myself, the reason why that's happening is because she's real.
Yeah.
You know, like you kind of have to like almost think to yourself, like behind the anger, behind the chaos, because why do we get angry at things? Like, why do we like, oh, you suck? You're saying that because you want to be that person. Like you're angry at yourself that you can't be that person, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, we are flawed motherfuckers.
It'll always be that way.
I don't
It
know.
always.
I don't know. You wonder if that will be always the case. Because you know what? Like something we've pointed out, if you look at throughout our history, artists today have a lot more freedom than they've ever had before.
Yes.
There's no more need for women to fuck their old saggy bosses. There's no need for teenagers to get weird with the adults. There's no need for. I mean, there still is, but I'm just. There's a lot more access and availability now for those things not to happen as often.
Yeah. I mean, you still watch people all the time getting caught doing that sort of stupid shit,
True. There's a
which
lot less of
is,
that stuff, though.
yes, definitely. Well, as much as you can say that, right? Because people are still on the internet now. People aren't doing it as much for jobs. It's not on the open. I think that's one of the big things. Is a lot of it is sort of receded
Hidden.
into the shadows.
Yeah.
It's like people do it behind closed doors instead of like, the waitress is not the waitress. The your boss is not gonna come and smack the waitress on the ass, but he'll leave those subtle comments. He'll take part in a little attempt at quid pro quo, right? So
What's the I think his name is Cat Williams. He's
yeah,
the Yeah, he's the one that's been, saying that there's the shadow government, you know.
yep.
Yeah, there's he's a funny little motherfucker, but it is really fucking scary that he's been pretty accurate. He's been accurate for years. And I don't feel like people take him serious. Like, I wonder how he's still alive. You know what I mean? It kind of like almost giving me like Squid Game 001 vibes.
Right.
Like, are you like the foreman, like the man behind the black mask, and you're just like
You think
in the
it's him?
game? Yeah, you
You watched the
know,
new season of Squid Games?
it was. I'm gonna wait for season 3 to make my final decision. Okay, I trust Korean television. Um, I really do. I trust them a little too much, but yeah, it was okay.
It was. I don't want to spoil anything, but
No, 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 you don't
for
have to.
anybody who might be watching, but
Zero
there are
zero
some.
one 000 like 001, like we already know who he
Right, of
is,
course,
so like there's no.
but not everybody's seen it yet. But or rather, some of the stuff that he gets done, in some of the games, and
But
the
that's
way
what
that he plays that game
is crazy as fuck. But
right.
what do you like? Honestly, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, do you think, or like, maybe possibly a little bit, that Cat Williams is the insider?
No,
No, you don't believe it.
I think this stuff he's presenting things that have been open secrets for a really long time, and I think it's great that this stuff is coming to light and that he's the one to do it. It's good for him, but I don't think that there's anything special about him in particular. A lot of
Damn.
these people have known all this stuff before. Like you look at, the Diddy stuff, right? That stuff has been out there for decades.
Yeah, but it's been
He's
covered.
been known.
I mean, it's
Not
it's
really. It's been covered in the way that, all right, you don't watch wrestling by any chance, right? Pro wrestling.
No, not particularly, but I will watch it if it is playing in the room.
There used to be a pro wrestler who went by the name of Pat Patterson, and for literally decades, nobody would say it, but everybody knew that Pat Patterson was gay, right? Because pro wrestling was a boys' club back then. It was, we don't accept that sort of stuff. Society wasn't ready for it. This, that, and the third. And Pat Patterson was he had been an Intercontinental Champion, which is like a secondary title in pro wrestling or in that market of the WWE. So he also had like a really high up backstage position.
Was this like back in the 80s?
Yeah, this guy's back. He's from back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
And it was a big open secret. Everybody knew it. So by the time it came out, people were like, oh, yeah, yeah, no shit. It's sort of the same thing with this Diddy stuff. I feel like everybody's been like, well, yeah, I'm not really shocked. And even Cat Williams, they weren't like, oh my God, Cat Williams is telling the truth. They all thought he was crazy until that video came out of him doing what he was doing, him being Diddy on Cassie, him beating the hell out of Cassie. It was disgusting to watch, but
I mean,
he,
it's kind of like the R. Kelly video. I mean,
hopefully we're not watching the R. Kelly video, right?
no, we're not watching the R. Kelly video. Okay, I think we've all been scarred by that shit. But
It's good to clarify this on record.
no, but like
Nobody's
I'm being
watching the R.
serious.
Kelly
Like
video.
that was the final nail in the coffin. It's like, all right, dude. Like I hate to say it though. Like the man did have some good jamming songs. Like he did make some good music. But it's just
Yeah,
like, you know what? It's a reality of that, like, artists are human beings, and sometimes human beings are terrible people.
yeah, yep. At the end of the day, and even good people do bad things, right? So, not to say that he was a good person outside of this, just to be clear, but
Yeah,
it's
no.
it's definitely one of those things where they're human beings, and I think people forget that they're human beings at the end of the day, and either idolize them or put them on the pedestal that they absolutely do not belong on.
No, not at all. Like, I wonder, I was talking with another band, sometimes, like, almost we're to get into your own groove, no pun intended, um, you gotta make what you want,
Yep.
It's something I realized along the way because, like, a lot of people spend like their 20s, having fun and doing a lot of cool shit. I've kind of like been spending my time like trying to figure out like what I want to do in my life. And it's like being an artist sometimes means that like you got to be able to make those sacrifices.
Yeah.
And you're right. Sometimes we don't make good decisions. Sometimes we make really fucking bad decisions. But we fuck up. Hopefully not like Diddy and R. Kelly.
Well, yeah. That's
God.
a whole different conversation.
Oh, Jesus. And believe it or not, there are people that are like
Yeah.
way worse.
Even across the pond there was that Jimmy Savile guy, right? Who it turns out after he died, it was like, oh, he was a prolific child molester. Prolific is a crazy word for that. But he was a serial child molester. So it's definitely one of those things where you never know. You never know. These people are they're complex. Like at the end of the day, they're human beings. And I think that we idolize them in a way that we shouldn't. And that's where we get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah. There's one artist that I personally like, I've always like connected with. And it's kind of like it's crazy because David Bowie,
Mm-hmm.
he created his eulogy was an album. It's called Black Star. Okay? Like not that many artists have done like created a eulogy as an album, but he did. Dude, like it feels like you're at the man's fucking funeral. And it's
Larry David did the same thing.
and it's beautiful. I don't know. It's sometimes like the dark shit is sometimes the most beautiful because it
Yeah,
connects you to something really deep
absolutely.
inside. Which artist did you mention also did that?
I was kidding, but I was talking about Larry David. He hosted his own funeral in Curb Your Enthusiasm. He, like, literally hosted his own funeral and then watched the funeral from a separate room to see how people spoke about him and stuff. I don't think it was him that hosted it. I think it was one of his friends that hosted it.
I I haven't watched Curb Enthusiasm in a while, but that show is just. I mean, first off, you start to understand how Seinfeld was made.
Yeah, Seinfeld is a show where the older you get, the better that show gets. Because you start seeing, like, oh, this is really how people interact. This is not always just a sitcom thing. It's like people really are this annoying in real life half the time. Like Friends is funny because, or for some people, I don't particularly find Friends funny, but um a lot of people find it funny because of how ridiculous it can get, right? Or like the Big Bang Theory. Like that stuff is not, you don't know somebody that's like Sheldon Cooper. You don't know somebody that's like Ross Geller. But you probably do know somebody to some extent who's like in the lane. Toned down slightly, you find somebody that's like a Jerry. You don't know a Kramer,
I know
hopefully,
people that are like Kramer.
that's because you're from New York, man.
Yeah,
But
that's. And
because
I will say this,
it's,
they are sometimes some of the coolest people. Um,
yeah,
Kramer is very misunderstood because where I come from, we call those kind of people speedsters. Do you know why we call them
because they're
speedsters?
on speed. Yeah, that
um,
makes sense.
yeah,
You imagine
there-
Larry David didn't realize that? He just thought this is like some eccentric guy. Turns out this guy's been on speed the entire time.
I mean, bro, come on. Like, as you get older and you watch Seinfeld, Kramer does the, with his nose, and he does it with the twitching of the ears. He's definitely
You think
doing the
the
Tokyo.
you think the actor himself was on anything?
No, I mean he probably was on something else. Could be.
He was that guy was
The,
nuts.
the thing about Seinfeld, which is as you watch the series, they get worse and worse and worse. And
Yeah.
like, the most crazy thing is like try to watch an episode from like season 3 and then from like season 8.
You know what the change is there? Season 3, Larry David's still writing the show. Season 8, that's all Jerry Seinfeld. Everything after season 7 is all Jerry Seinfeld writing, and Jerry Seinfeld's sense of humor is certainly not the same as Larry David's.
No.
Not that it's worse in terms of like the show quality, because the show was still hilarious. Like some of the best moments are in those last couple seasons. But we just got out of the holidays, so Festivus is from freaking that's Jerry
Festivus for
Seinfeld.
the rest of
Yep.
us.
That's probably one of my favorite episodes, right? And that's a holiday episode from Jerry
Oh, the
Seinfeld.
poll. We need,
Yes,
bro. We should have run a poll, man. Oh,
the feats of strength
oh
is
my.
ridiculous. It's such a great show.
But you know what the crazy part is because like I have my mother's from Brooklyn, okay, and
Yeah,
she's Jewish, so she's 65. You kind of already know the picture. They really are like that, okay? Like I'm not making this shit up. I'm being very serious right now. Jewish Brooklyn mothers are as crazy as they are in Seinfeld, and they are that way because they love you at the same time, but in a really fucked up way. Okay, we
yeah.
don't know how to explain it. Oh
It's
my
still
god.
love, right? At the end of
It's
the day,
yeah. I remember once when I was living in LA, I met this Mexican guy, and I was telling him this, and he's like, "Oh, we have that in our country. It's called a slipper."
yeah, that's
so,
hilarious.
so I was like, "Wait a minute. So you do it through physical, not verbal?"
Physical.
Yeah. different forms of emotional and physical abuse. But like getting back, getting back to Larry David, I mean, it's kind of crazy because I've heard like in real life he really is like that. He's not a
Yeah.
very he's not a very nice person to be around. I
But
don't
you
know.
know what? You shouldn't have to be. If you give me
No.
$100 million today, I'll be such a jerk probably. Not a jerk, just antisocial. I'll probably be a little antisocial.
It's weird when you like watch a video of like Demi Moore and Angelina Jolie in a room and they're like talking about like we can't go outside and interact with each other. I'm like, bitch, what the fuck you talking about? You talking about like as if like you're in prison or something. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you can't interact with other actresses. You can't like interact with other people. Like, I no, they got security and surveillance and security and survey. Doesn't I'm not gonna lie to you, it does not sound really pleasant. It sounds really miserable.
I feel you.
What do you see honestly? Like, what do you see for yourself? Because like you don't seem like somebody that wants to like go after that life. You want to go after something else. So what is that?
Yeah, I want to make my art my living, right? Like I've said this before, I'm not somebody who needs to put myself out there to make a living, right? I don't need to be doing the art to survive. It's what I want, and it's something that I'm genuinely passionate about. So for me, when I say what do I see, or when you ask what do I see for myself, that's really it. It's however that's happening, performing for people, being able to drop music, being able to do that stuff without having to worry about where my next paycheck is coming from, to be able to fully dedicate my time to this, to my craft and growing. I think those are the things that I really want to be able to do. Um, and just touch and connect with people, right? Not physically, but emotionally, be able to connect with people and really start to give who I am to the world, and also be able to have people not only learn but sort of resonate with the world that I've been in and been a part of.
Be your own.
Yep,
Find strength in
absolutely.
that. I mean, you know, we live in a different world, but so what? I think
Yeah,
that what holds us back is fear and the unknown. And guess what? I fucking love fear and I fucking love the unknown.
I had to learn to love it.
You
So
have to.
you have to absolutely look again. Like I said, one of the things that stopped me, I think I was ready to release music long ago. Like even at least one or two of these songs is about 4 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I was ready to release music then. I think what's always held me back is that anxiety, and it's like you got to fight that, because what I want, the end goal, is greater than that momentary feeling of anxiety that you might have where you doubt yourself, right? That end product of, even if it's two people. I used to say, like, if I could get on somebody, this is how old I am, I guess. If I could, I just want to be on a couple iPods before I die. You know what I mean? So it's always been about the music. It's always been about sharing that and getting past that anxiety piece of it. So yeah, no, I get where you're coming from entirely, and it's a huge thing.
It is. Kevin, quick question for you. I know you have your socials and you mentioned you do have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's at Kevin King 922, by the way. So
Kevin King 922. Do you have a website?
I don't have a website yet. I should probably get one up. It probably would be a good little step to have. I just
Okay.
don't have, I'm not at a place where I feel like I need to, announce anything or put anything up, but I kind of need to start driving traffic there. It'd probably be a good business move.
Okay. What I'm going to do is in the description bio below, I will put in your YouTube channel. And then I'm going to put in, you have Instagram?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, we'll throw that in there so we can find the jam, the groove, and the jive.
Yeah, that
There you
sounds
go.
dope.
Mm-hmm.
Just dropped a video too, so by the time that this is out, the video for fall will be out, which is just like sort of a live performance video. I think it'll be dope to be able to get people's eyes on that.
Do you do live performances indoors, or you do outdoor venues as well?
I would love to do outdoor venues. I gotta sell some tickets. Once we get there, yeah.
Listen, one thing at a time. But you know what?
One thing at a time.
You'll get there. You know?
Appreciate it.
Of course, man. Listen, Kev, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And for anybody out there, if you want to find out more of the podcast, you can find us on all the socials and Rumble at Lost Living Pod. So with that, catch you on the next one. Adios.